The day I signed the divorce papers, I felt nothing but relief. I had been married to Maya for 5 years, and every single day of those 5 years had been a struggle. She was beautiful, yes, but beauty wasn't enough to sustain a marriage. I had learned that lesson the hard way, through countless evenings of silence, through the growing chasm between us that I had neither the patience nor the desire to bridge. She was quiet, reserved, and utterly unambitious. She had no drive, no passion, no desire to be anything more than a housewife. She spent her days tending to the garden, reading books, and cooking meals that I rarely had time to eat. She was content with her simple life, and I resented her for it. I remembered the first time I had seen her. She had been working at a small bookstore, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, her face free of makeup. She had looked up when I walked in, and her smile had been so warm, so genuine, that I had felt something shift inside me. I had been drawn to her simplicity, her purity, her complete lack of pretense. She was a breath of fresh air in a world that was suffocating me. But that simplicity, which had once attracted me, had become the very thing I despised. I had wanted to mold her, to shape her into the woman I needed her to be.
I had wanted to show her off at galas and business dinners, to watch her charm investors and network with the elite. But she had refused to be molded. She had refused to be anything other than who she was. I had bought her designer clothes, beautiful gowns that cost more than most people's annual salaries. I had hired stylists, makeup artists, and personal trainers. I had dragged her to countless events, hoping that she would finally embrace the life I had chosen for her. But she had simply smiled politely, nodded at the right moments, and then retreated to her garden the first chance she got. I remembered one evening in particular, a gala that had been hosted by one of the most influential families in the city. I had spent weeks preparing, making sure that everything was perfect. Maya had worn a stunning gown, her hair and makeup done flawlessly. She had looked like a queen, poised and elegant. But as soon as the formalities were over, she had slipped away, and I had found her in the garden, her shoes off, her feet in the grass, a peaceful smile on her face. "What are you doing?" I had demanded, my voice sharp with frustration. "You're supposed to be inside, networking, making connections." She had looked up at me, her eyes soft and unbothered. "I needed some air," she had said. "The garden is so peaceful. You should try it sometime." I had felt a surge of anger. She didn't understand. She didn't understand the pressure, the expectations, the constant need to perform. She didn't understand that I needed her to be more than just a wife. I needed her to be a partner, an ally, a weapon in my arsenal. But she had never been any of those things. She had simply been Maya, and that had never been enough for me. So when I met Victoria, a stunning, ambitious woman who was everything Maya wasn't, I knew I had to end my marriage. Victoria was a corporate lawyer, sharp, confident, and fiercely independent. She was the kind of woman who commanded attention when she walked into a room. She understood the demands of my life, the pressure of my career, the importance of appearances. She was the perfect partner, the perfect wife. I had met her at a business conference, and we had hit it off immediately. She was brilliant, articulate, and she had a way of making me feel like I was the most important person in the room. She didn't shy away from the spotlight. She embraced it. She didn't retreat to the garden. She worked the room with a confidence that left me breathless. Within weeks, I had known that I wanted to marry her. Within months, I had filed for divorce. Maya had been devastated, of course. She had begged me to reconsider, her eyes filled with tears. She had asked me if there was anything she could do, anything she could change. I had told her no. I had told her that I had made my decision, and that was final. I remembered the look on her face when I had told her. It was as if something inside her had broken. Her shoulders had slumped, her hands had trembled, and she had looked at me with a mixture of disbelief and sorrow. "Alexander, please," she had whispered, her voice cracking. "I love you. I've always loved you. Don't do this." "I'm sorry, Maya," I had said, my voice cold and flat. "But I've made my decision. This marriage isn't working. I need someone who can match my ambition." She had looked at me for a long moment, her eyes searching mine for any sign of hesitation, any hint of regret. But she had found none. I had been resolute. I had been ready to move on. She had signed the papers without a fight. She had packed her things and walked out of our penthouse, her head held high despite the tears streaming down her face. I had watched her go, and I had felt nothing but relief. I was free.
The months that followed were a whirlwind of excitement and new beginnings. Victoria and I had gotten engaged quickly, our relationship moving at a pace that matched my ambitions.
We had planned a lavish wedding, one that would solidify my status in the elite circles of the city. I had been happier than I had ever been. Victoria was everything I had ever wanted in a partner. She was driven, ambitious, and she understood the importance of appearances. She accompanied me to every gala, every business dinner, every event. She charmed investors, networked with the elite, and she did it all with a grace and confidence that left me in awe. I had thought that I had finally found the perfect partner. I had thought that I had made the right decision. I had convinced myself that I was happier than I had ever been. But then I saw her. It was at a charity gala, a few months after the divorce had been finalized. I had been walking through the ballroom, my arm linked with Victoria's, when I spotted a woman across the room. She was stunning, breathtaking, the kind of woman who made everyone stop and stare. She was wearing a sleek red gown that hugged her curves, her dark hair cascading over her shoulders in soft waves. Her makeup was flawless, her smile radiant. It took me a moment to realize who she was. It was Maya. I felt my breath catch in my throat. She was transformed, utterly and completely transformed. Gone was the quiet, reserved woman I had married. In her place was a confident, radiant goddess who commanded attention.
She was laughing at something someone had said, her eyes sparkling with joy. She looked happy, she looked free, and she looked more beautiful than I had ever seen her. I felt a pang of something I hadn't expected, regret. It hit me like a physical blow, stealing the air from my lungs. I had let her go. I had thrown her away like she was nothing. And now, seeing her like this, I realized what I had lost. Victoria noticed my distraction and followed my gaze. "Who is that?" she asked, her voice sharp. I opened my mouth to answer, but no words came out. I couldn't tear my eyes away from Maya. She was glowing, radiating a confidence and beauty that I had never seen in her before. Her posture was different, her demeanor different. She held herself like a woman who knew her worth, who had discovered a strength she had never known she possessed. It was then that I saw him, a tall, handsome man standing beside Maya, his hand resting on the small of her back. He was looking at her with an expression of pure adoration, and she was looking back at him with the same warmth. He was the kind of man who commanded respect without trying, who exuded a quiet confidence that was impossible to ignore. I felt a surge of jealousy, hot and fierce. Who was this man? How did he know Maya? Why was he touching her?
I searched my memory, trying to place his face, but I came up empty. He was a stranger, a man who had somehow stepped into the life I had left behind. Victoria tugged on my arm, pulling me back to reality. "Alexander, who is that woman?" I forced myself to look away, my heart pounding in my chest. "No one," I said, my voice tight. "She's no one." But she wasn't no one. She was the woman I had divorced, the woman I had thrown away, the woman I had never truly appreciated. She was the woman who had loved me unconditionally, who had given me everything she had, and I had thrown it all away for ambition, for appearances, for a woman who was nothing like her. And now she was gone. She had moved on, and she was happy. She was happier without me than she had ever been with me. I stood there, frozen, watching her laugh with the man who had taken my place. The music swirled around me, the laughter of the guests faded into the background, and all I could see was her, the woman I had let go, the woman I would never get back. Victoria's voice cut through my thoughts. "Alexander, you're staring. What's wrong with you?" I shook my head, forcing a smile. "Nothing. I'm fine. Let's go." I took her arm and led her away, but my mind was still with Maya. I had seen her transformed, and I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that I had made the biggest mistake of my life. I had been free, but I had never felt more trapped. The months that followed were a blur of regret and self-loathing. I had tried to move on, to focus on my relationship with Victoria, but it was impossible. Every time I looked at her, I saw Maya. Every time she spoke, I heard Maya's voice. Every time she touched me, I felt Maya's absence. I had made a terrible mistake, and I didn't know how to fix it. Victoria had grown increasingly frustrated with me.
She had accused me of being emotionally unavailable, of not being fully present in our relationship. She had even threatened to end things if I didn't get my act together. But I couldn't get my act together. I was consumed by regret, by the realization that I had thrown away the best thing that had ever happened to me. I tried to reach out to Maya again. I sent her flowers, wrote her letters, even showed up at her office, but she refused to see me. She had moved on, and she had no interest in rekindling the past. One evening, I was sitting alone in my penthouse, a glass of whiskey in my hand, when I heard a knock at the door. I opened it, and my heart stopped. It was Maya. She was standing in the doorway, her expression calm but determined. She was wearing a simple white dress, her hair loose, her face free of makeup.
She looked like the woman I had married, the woman I had divorced, the woman I had never truly appreciated. "Alexander," she said, her voice soft but firm, "we need to talk." I stepped aside, gesturing for her to come in. She walked past me, her steps light and confident. I closed the door and followed her into the living room. "Thank you for coming," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I didn't think you would." She turned to face me, her eyes fixed on mine. "I came because I needed to say something I should have said a long time ago." I held my breath, my heart pounding. "What is it?" She took a deep breath, her hands clasped in front of her. "I forgive you," she said, "for everything, for the divorce, for the way you treated me, for the years you made me feel like I wasn't enough. I forgive you." I stared at her, my mind reeling. "You forgive me?" "Yes," she said. "I've moved on, Alexander. I've found happiness. I've found someone who loves me for who I am. And I realized that holding on to the anger and resentment was only hurting me." I felt a lump form in my throat. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice breaking. "I'm so sorry. I made a terrible mistake. I should have never let you go." She smiled, a soft, sad smile. "You didn't let me go, Alexander. You pushed me away." And I needed that push. I needed to find myself, to discover who I was without you. I stepped toward her, my hands outstretched. "Maya, please, give me another chance. Let me prove that I can be the man you deserve." She shook her head, her expression gentle but firm. "I can't do that, Alexander. I've moved on. I'm engaged to David, and I love him. I'm happy." I felt my heart shatter. I had known it was hopeless, but hearing her say it out loud made it real. I had lost her. I had lost her forever. "Thank you," she said, her voice soft, "for teaching me what I didn't want, and for showing me that I was stronger than I ever knew." She turned and walked out of the door, and I stood there, watching her go. I had made a terrible mistake, and I would have to live with the consequences.
The years that followed were a lesson in humility. I had tried to move on, to rebuild my life, to convince myself that I had made the right decision. But I could never quite shake the regret that haunted me, the ghost of Maya that followed me everywhere I went. I had lost her, and I would never get her back. I had thrown myself into my work, trying to fill the void that Maya had left behind. I had built an empire, amassed a fortune, and achieved everything I had ever wanted. I had expanded Sterling Industries into new markets, acquired rival companies, and become one of the most powerful men in the country. I had been featured on magazine covers, invited to speak at prestigious conferences, and celebrated as a visionary leader. But it had all felt hollow. Empty. I would sit in my office late at night, staring out at the city skyline, the lights twinkling like 1,000 stars. I had everything I had ever wanted: money, power, respect. But I had nothing that truly mattered. I had no one to share it with, no one to come home to, no one who cared about me for anything other than my wealth and status. Victoria and I had ended things, too. She had grown tired of my obsession with my ex-wife, of my inability to let go. She had accused me of being emotionally unavailable, of not being fully present in our relationship. And she had been right. I hadn't been present. I had been consumed by regret, by the realization that I had thrown away the best thing that had ever happened to me. "You're still in love with her," Victoria had said, her voice flat and resigned. "You've always been in love with her." I was just a distraction, a way for you to pretend that you had moved on. I had tried to deny it, to tell her that she was wrong. But the words had stuck in my throat. I couldn't lie to her. I couldn't lie to myself. "I'm sorry," I had said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I never meant to hurt you." She had smiled, a sad, hollow smile. "I know. But I deserve more than this. I deserve someone who loves me the way you love her." She had walked out of my life that day, and I had let her go. I had been alone again, just as I had been after Maya left. and I had realized that I had been alone all along.
I had spent countless sleepless nights replaying my mistakes in my head. I remembered the day I had signed the divorce papers, the relief I had felt, the certainty that I was making the right decision. I remembered the way Maya had looked at me, her eyes filled with tears, her voice trembling as she begged me to reconsider. I remembered the cold, dismissive way I had told her no. I thought about all the times I had pushed her away, all the times I had made her feel like she wasn't enough. I thought about the evenings I had spent at the office, the dinners I had missed, the anniversaries I had forgotten. I thought about the garden she had loved, the simple life she had cherished, the peace she had found in the quiet rhythms of the land. And I realized that I had never truly appreciated her. I had taken her for granted, assumed that she would always be there, waiting for me to notice her. And when I had finally noticed, it had been too late. I had often thought about Maya, wondering if she was happy, wondering if she had married David, wondering if she ever thought of me. I had hoped, foolishly, that she might still carry a torch for me, that she might still harbor some lingering feelings. But I knew it was a fantasy. She had moved on. She had found someone who loved her, the way she deserved to be loved.
I had seen her once, a few years after our conversation. I had been walking through the park, trying to clear my head, when I had spotted her in the distance. She had been walking hand in hand with David, her laughter echoing through the trees. She had been wearing a simple white dress, her hair loose, her face free of makeup. She had looked happy. She had looked free. She had looked the way she had looked when I had first met her, before I had tried to change her, before I had tried to mold her into something she wasn't. She had been herself, and she had been beautiful. I had watched her from a distance, hidden behind a tree, unable to tear my eyes away. I had watched the way she smiled at David, the way she leaned into him, the way she trusted him. I had watched the way he looked at her, his eyes filled with adoration and love. And I had felt a pang of regret so powerful that it had brought me to my knees. I had let her go. I had thrown away the best thing that had ever happened to me, and I had no one to blame but myself. I had learned a hard lesson. Love was not about appearances or ambition. It was not about finding someone who could elevate your status or advance your career. It was about finding someone who accepted you for who you were, someone who saw your flaws and loved you anyway. It was about finding someone who made you feel like you were enough, just as you were. Maya had been that person. She had loved me unconditionally, and I had been too blind to see it. She had seen the man behind the facade, the man who was scared and lonely and desperate for connection, and she had loved him anyway. I thought about all the ways she had tried to reach me, all the small gestures of love I had dismissed, the dinners she had prepared, the books she had recommended, the quiet evenings she had spent by my side. She had been trying to show me that she loved me, that she wanted to be close to me, and I had pushed her away. I had spent the rest of my life trying to make amends, trying to be a better person. I had donated to charities, helped struggling families, and tried to make a difference in the world. I had funded scholarships for underprivileged students, supported women's shelters, and contributed to medical research. I had tried to use my wealth and influence for good, hoping that it would somehow fill the void that Maya had left behind. But nothing could ever fill that void. The emptiness remained, a constant reminder of the love I had lost. I had been given a second chance, and I had thrown it away. I had been loved, truly and deeply, and I had let it slip through my fingers. I had been given the gift of a woman who loved me for who I was, and I had been too foolish to hold on to her, and I would carry that regret with me for the rest of my life. I had grown older, my hair turning gray, my face lined with years of regret. I had built an empire, but I had lost the one thing that truly mattered. I had learned that love was not about appearances or ambition. It was about finding someone who saw your flaws and loved you anyway. It was about finding someone who made you want to be a better person, not because they demanded it, but because they inspired it. Maya had inspired me to be better. She had shown me that there was more to life than success, more to happiness than wealth. She had shown me that love was the greatest gift of all, but I had been too blind to see it. And now it was too late.
I often sat on the balcony of my penthouse, looking out at the city skyline, remembering the life I had thrown away. I thought about the day I had signed the divorce papers, the relief I had felt, the certainty that I was making the right decision. I thought about the woman I had let go, the woman who had loved me unconditionally. I thought about her garden, the simple life she had cherished, the peace she had found. And I realized that I had spent my entire life chasing the wrong things. I had chased success, wealth, and status. I had chased the approval of others, the admiration of strangers. But I had never chased love. And now it was too late. I had been given a second chance, and I had thrown it away. I had been loved, truly and deeply, and I had let it slip through my fingers. I had been given the gift of a woman who loved me for who I was, and I had been too foolish to hold on to her. I had learned that love was not about appearances or ambition. It was about finding someone who saw your flaws and loved you anyway. It was about finding someone who made you feel like you were enough, just as you were. And I would carry that lesson with me for the rest of my life. One evening, as I sat on my balcony watching the sunset, I felt a strange sense of peace wash over me. I had made mistakes, terrible mistakes. I had lost the love of my life, and I would never get her back. But I had learned from those mistakes. I had grown, I had changed, and I had become a better person.
I thought about Maya, and I smiled. She was happy. She was free, and that was all that mattered. I had let her go, but I had also set her free. I had given her the chance to find the love she deserved. And in a strange way, that was enough. Part of me had been loved, truly and deeply, by a woman who had given me everything she had. And even though I had lost her, I would always be grateful for the time we had spent together. I would carry her memory with me for the rest of my life, and I would try, in my own way, to honor the love she had given me. I had been given a second chance, and I had thrown it away. But I had also been given a lesson that I would carry with me for the rest of my life. Love was not about appearances or ambition. It was about finding someone who saw your flaws and loved you anyway. It was about finding someone who made you want to be a better person. And I had found that person. I had found her, and I had lost her. But I would never forget her.